Hello. What's up, everyone? How are we doing? How's everyone feeling? What's up? So, there's no StarCraft today because Kung Fu Cup is obviously not on because, well, you know, Kung Fu Cup is the same week as World Team League, and World Team League is not on this weekend because of Home Story Cup. So, because of that, instead, we are going to be hopping on towards some action. In the form of some battle lasers. So this is obviously the new David Kim, Capped Games, RTS, etc. That we've been talking about and hearing about a little bit now. So I actually recorded these games the other day. I actually was the observer for these games. I played a bunch of games with Parting when we were kind of like beforehand, like scrimming and so on, prepping and all the rest of it. So that was very fun. I'm just trying to figure out what I just now realized I should probably download the versions that they gave us just in case they didn't want certain games shown or something for some reason. So yeah, but we're gonna cast or kind of go through these games. I have some first-hand experience playing against Parting, so I have a good idea about kind of how he's, a lot of the thought process and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. And hopefully makes it kind of interesting. And like I said, I don't have any StarCraft to do today, so we're just gonna do this today, and then we'll take a few days off because it's Home Story Cup, and then I'll be back on. The Battle Aces beta actually comes out next week, so we'll probably be doing a bunch of that next week. Although we will also be back with StarCraft, Kung Fu Cups, and stuff like that as well. It's just yeah, that's what's going on. We'll try and keep ourselves as busy as we can. So I'm just downloading a couple of, like I say, the games because kind of it's gonna work a bit differently than I thought it would, but that's okay. Shouldn't be too bad. Full screen it. I think I have to pause my music. It's gonna come through the audio. Cool. What's up, Mark? Thank you so much for the 115-month resub. How you doing? How you doing? So yeah, these games were played on Friday. It's Tuesday to it's Wednesday today, right? Yes, these games were played on Friday. So these games were played on Friday. Like I said, I observed them, so I've got a rough idea of what happens in the games, roughly, but not like I don't remember each game by game. There's 15 games and a 2v2 at the end as well, so there's quite a lot of available matches basically. So I'm just gonna download a few so we can kind of get going without any delays and stuff, and then we go from there. And yeah, this is the betas for this is gonna be out next week. This game's super fun to play. I really enjoy playing it, so excited to probably gonna run a tournament next week as well, providing that we're allowed. I don't see why we wouldn't be, but probably gonna run a tournament one after the beta's been out a couple of days. Probably do something like that because I really enjoy this game. I think it's very good. I think it's very fun. There's high skill cap. It's exciting. It's entertaining. So yeah, I think it's just gonna be a good time. So yeah, give me kind of download multiple at once. Yes. Cool. And do that. Perfect. Almost 10 years of resubscribing. Yeah, Mark's been subscribed since before I went full-time in StarCraft, which is... When did I go full-time? I think it's probably about 9 years ago today or something. Let me check on my TL. I don't remember, it's sometime in June, the time since I went full-time. Post. Blog. Didn't post as a blog, did I? Hey. June 6th, or June 5th, 2015, I went full-time in StarCraft 2. Isn't that wild? 9 years ago. Hey, that's crazy. That is crazy. What number did I download? I downloaded 8, 9, 10, 11. I guess I'm just going to download them all before we start. That makes sense. Do I think they oversimplified the macro compared to SE2? Well, that depends. Well, no, because I don't find doing the macro elements of SE2 fun anymore. To me, macro and the macro mechanics is a bit of a chore. And while it was a good thing, it's one of those things where it's like it creates a baseline level of skill. But to me, it's also one of the things that drives people away from coming back to StarCraft 2. Because every time I come back to StarCraft 2, for example, I play, and every time I play, I realize that I can't do the things that I want to do. And that's a combination of things, but like one of the big things is my mechanics just suck. So I'm instantly worse than I was before. And the only answer to get better at that is to like play a lot more games again. It's like, I don't know, that to me that's not fun. To like, I want to go in and try some new strats out and try some new things or the new maps. I'm just like, I feel like held back by my lack of mechanics because it's been a while since I've played or whatever. So yeah, I kind of feel like mechanics in SC2 hold back from. To me, there's nothing wrong with the mechanics in SC2, but that's my experience with them, so I can understand the idea of wanting to create something that doesn't have as much of a holdback. Like when you go into this game, I feel like it's gonna, if you don't play for a while, you come back, it's like, oh, like maybe my macro isn't as good and stuff. I feel like that's less frustrating than like being held back in a mechanical aspect. So yeah. Do I enjoy casting as much as back in the days? Yeah, I enjoy casting. I just it's just a little bit tough to stay motivated for like. I think the problem is it's not that I don't enjoy casting as much. It's that a lot of the StarCraft 2 scene is a little bit repetitive. The elements are all the same. It's a little bit stagnant. So I do enjoy casting. I just it's just been a little bit repetitive lately. And this year, you guys probably noticed I'm a little bit of a strut. I don't really have as much motivation to run my own tournaments and so on. But yeah, and that's not necessarily related to just like wanting to cast. It's more like I try and run a tournament, then World Team League's on every single weekend. So you can't run anything on the weekends, which immediately takes away most of the best days for viewership. And so there's just kind of like a little knock-on effect there where it's like, well, that kind of makes me not want to do you know what I mean? That makes me not want to do SC2 like as much SC2 because I'm not running my own stuff, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily because of the cast, and I'd say it's more like other things, other aspects. So when I go to Dallas and stuff, I have a great time casting. So yeah, I'd say my that I really have any qualms, but mostly that's on the side of trying to run events and stuff. All right, you guys wanna watch some battle aces? If you guys got any questions, I will stop and take questions between games and stuff. If you don't know anything about this game, I have a YouTube video which really does go over like everything you're looking at. I'll do a little bit of a beginner-friendly kind of setup here in terms of casting and talking and discussing things, and stuff like that. So we'll do a bit, like I say, a little bit beginner-friendly, because we're all beginners really. But I'm not gonna explain anything and everything because, well, I will if you guys ask, but I'm not gonna like necessarily explain from the absolute ground up of like you guys know absolutely nothing, I suppose, because then I'm gonna do a lot of explaining. So, am I going to Home Story Cup? Yeah. Yes, I am. Alright, let's get in. So yeah, like I say, I recorded these the other day. So this is Parting versus Clem. They're all Parting versus Clem. This is going to be Parting opening with Wasps. He also has Bombers and Swift Shockers and a couple of Air Switches. Clem's playing Blink, King Crab, and Raiders. But also he's got some Snipers for later game tech. We'll kind of see what sort of tech he delves into. The early game of Wasp versus Blink is actually, I think, pretty good for Blink, because Blink can trade pretty well against the Wasps. The ability to blink out of surrounds and stuff means that these Wasps, which are kind of like Zergling-like units, those are, they're able to kind of navigate a lot better than other units are. So I actually think this is a good early game matchup for Clem. Personally, if I'm Clem here, my goal is to kind of play very tech heavy. You tech up, you don't let the Wasps be over aggro by kind of going to a third base too soon. You get your tech, one big push, maybe take a third behind it. That's, I think, the typical kind of best go-to against Wasps. It's not, you can take a third base, but it's all about splitting your units up. You can see Parton has two different sets of units here, right? So he's already kind of set to go on two sides. So Clem's going to stay between his bases. And now is the time Parton wants to go, because the work has just spawned in the natural. So Clem's just kind of sitting here, and it's going to be all about just kind of getting the right amount of units wherever you need to be. And I think the other thing with Blink here is that you also want to be able to chase, because you need confidence to be like, oh yeah, this I can actually blink after this and make something happen. So as Clem moves out to the left, you're going to see the Wasps hit the right side and go for some economy. Clem will leave the majority of his forces towards the third. Well, it's interesting because he doesn't need to leave Blinks towards the third base, because the Wasps don't do a lot of damage to his base. They actually take a long time to kill a base, so you don't actually need units there straight away to defend the new base location. I think this is a mistake by Clem. He moved a bit too far out up the top, and losing over half of, I mean, that's like 3/4 of the economy on the natural is obviously pretty rough for him. So that was Clem, I think, just getting a little bit kind of over aggro. He sends some Raiders around. These guys are super OP, by the way. I talked to David Kim about these things, and TLDR, these things are insane. Look, one of them gets past, and it's going to blast, like, it's the Oracle of Battle Aces. It gets through, like, one of them, and it kills, like, probably 10 plus workers, even though, like, it was pretty much shut down. Point was not really out of position or anything. So the Raiders are pretty OP. I think they are... I said this, my quote to David Kim about this was, the Raider is the only unit that's made me not have fun playing this game. With some Bombers here, Pound's going to take this fight. The Bombers have a little bit of splashdown, just start some Swift Shockers to mix it up as well. I think Clem's actually in some trouble, because the King Crabs, which are his tech units, have gone down. And he's going to get a couple more of them here, but he's lost a lot of his Blinks. Yeah, I think this is just a rough fight for Clem, as he kind of got caught. A lot of his guys got hit by the Bombers, and he is going to recover, though, so he is going to be able to keep units on the front. However, now Parting dives around towards the natural location, and they are going to be a lot of workers going down very quickly. So Clem again losing his economy there, but the thing Parting might run into is Wasps do not scale well later in the game, and if you can have this King Crab force, these big red guys, the King Crabs, to kind of do the tanking, if they just don't really die to Wasps. All Bombers, really. So the Swift Shockers, I actually think, are the best thing against these King Crabs right now. They actually do surprisingly well against a King Crab once they start firing. But Parton loses all his economy on the third, so Clem is able to get a counterattack off pretty much immediately. So that's a pretty big deal, and obviously he is able to kind of equalize some of the damage that he's been taking. We'll blink upwards here. I actually think Parton's going to have issues in terms of bringing out enough units, because right now, what does he build? Well, he's going to build Wasps and Bombers, and the Bombers can be okay, but Clem with some cute Blink Micro there is just going to split away from the Bombers. And now he run a King Crab over towards the natural. So he's just going to run straight in there, and that is going to be, I think, Clem actually able to get rid of the third base of Parton as well, which is a massive victory. So just going to be having ourselves this base going down, and yeah, 3 bases to kind of 1.5 right now, because Parton lost some workers on that natural as well, and Clem again, made a little bit of a mistake early, but I do think Wasps in a very interesting place, because I feel like they're such an interesting unit, because when you first start playing, Wasps feel very broken. But the problem is, Wasps become very bad very quickly, right? Like, Wasps become very bad very quickly, because the moment you start keeping on building Wasps, and the thing is, it's like, what else do you build than Wasps? They're not great at tanking, because they actually get destroyed by AoE. So once Clem gets like a consolidated push going, Wasps, whatever they're supported by, I feel like really struggle. If they've not caused enough chaos and pulled their opponent apart enough, I would almost argue Parton would have been better trying to get up towards 4 bases, so he has more of the map to play around. He has more of the map to kind of play with. I mean, when we played in LA, Parton loved Wasps. He played Wasp, Stinger, and this unit here. What's that one called? I think this is the Stinger, and this is the I can't remember what this one's called. Give me a second, I'll look it up. For some reason I can't remember. But Pawn used these 3 units a lot, and they were all just fast and high powered. And I think that's when a Wasp can do well, but combining them with like bombers and stuff, I feel like does not necessarily end as well. Basically, I will also say that it's a little bit interesting because these games were not all of them were kind of Clement Parting playing what they feel is the best. Some of these games are also Clement Parting being told, "Hey, can you play like with this against this or that against that?" And I think that was makes I'm not going to say that it makes any of these games uninteresting. It just means that, for example, I wouldn't have paired a Wasp with a with like the bomber, you know. So it's like some interesting unit pairings. So yeah, this guy here, this bottom left guy is the Hornet, and I think that must mean that the bottom right guy, the other guy, is the Stinger. Yeah, so he's the Stinger. Yeah, so Pawn used these a lot in the closed alpha, and he was very good with them. Like he really pioneered this style. But as people figured out how to play against it more, it's definitely one of the styles he started to play a lot less of. So definitely seems kind of interesting. If you guys, again, if you got any questions, feel free to ask away, and I will answer to the best of my ability any questions you have and so on. So feel free to ask away and all the rest. Seemed a bit too fast. It didn't feel epic, but really fun. Yeah, I think game to game, like this is, I think, if you have a, for example, in a tournament setting, I feel like you're more so going to be building up the hype throughout a series rather than in one single game, because there's a lot of like very fun mechanics and back and forth mechanics, and there's some very good individual games as well. Do not get me wrong, but I feel like because it's fast paced, you're kind of you get hype points quickly and repeatedly, you know. So it's not clear how units are picked. You pick 3 before the game starts. No, you pick. So let me get into the next game, and I'll pause just at the start, and I'll show you. So you pick all of your units before the game starts. So we load in for game 2 and give it a pause. So this is your deck. So before the game begins, you pick all 8 of these units. So you have 2, basically what they call core unit spots. You have 2 regular you have a foundry spot, an advanced foundry spot, and then an any foundry spot. Foundry is, say, in compared to StarCraft or Factory Tech. And then you have a Starforge, advanced Starforge, and any Starforge slot. So basically you're picking 3 foundry-based and 3 Starforge-based units. At least one of those must be an advanced, so like a tier 3 unit on each of those techs. And then this final slot can be either or. So you can either have 2 kind of regular foundry techs, so 2 tier 2 foundry units and 1 tier 3, or 1 tier 2 and 2 tier 3. That's completely up to you. And you pick your deck before you go in. And so, again, my vision of how this game is going to become awesome is there's so many different formats you can do with this, from like banning unit picks to making players come in with 3 different decks that all have unique units in, and they've got to win with each of them to win a match. From that over to, you could even kind of, for example, just, you know, by map design, certain units are going to be worse on certain maps, and it's going to encourage different styles. And so you just let players pick freely on each map. If there's enough varied maps, that could be a very cool format as well. So yeah, so this is like a deck. You build it up, you decide what you want to do, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's why Clem has the same thing twice. He didn't have the same thing twice. They're all individual separate units, and you can make as many of these as you want, as you can afford, once you get the tech and the money to do so, right? What you might be getting confused with, what you might get confused with a little bit is, I guess go open game 1, is, well, I don't actually know, but like these are like 2 different blink units. This one's just a basic blink, and this one's like an anti-air blink. So there's some units that kind of fill fairly similar roles, but not quite. So yeah, he has 2 of the same units here. I think that these 2. I think these are turrets, so they kind of fill similar roles, but they are different. They're both turrets, which you place down as like static defense. Just they have different power levels, because one of them's regular and one of them's advanced, I would guess. The turrets are probably the hardest thing to kind of tell between. So yeah. Alright, let's get back in. Why? Oh, full screen. Alright, so this is game 2. So in this game, Kwame playing basic crabs. These are probably the worst core unit you can get. I didn't keep the thing up very long. So Kwame's playing basic crabs. He's also playing destroyers and king crabs. We'll talk about the tech as he gets it. Clem's playing Recall. Recall is actually super fun. So Recall is, it seems insane, but imagine a Protoss has Recall every 7 seconds. They can go to whichever base they want. It allows you to be so good, like, and so active around the map and everything. Gonna be interesting, because like I say, no one ever really plays basic crabs. Basic crabs are the worst, because they're just little melee units, but they're not particularly strong in their shots. They're a little bit too clunky to, like, surround with or to, like, micro well. No one really plays crabs. Okay? So these basic crabs do not get a lot of love. So yeah, they're definitely a little bit of a funky choice. They're really cute. To me, this is the unit where it's like, hey, welcome to Battle Aces. Let's build some crabs. Let's build your first unit. And it's basic and it's simple and it's easy to understand what it does because it's like the introductory unit in my eyes, right? So that to me is what the crabs are. You can see already here, Pine is going to be on the map. When you're playing against Recall, let's actually pause here for a sec. So when you're playing against Recall, you can be very active because Recall is very slow because of its mobility to teleport between bases, essentially. Early game, it's very slow moving. With this style, you want to expand a lot and you want to get to a lot of bases, basically. Clem's going Foundry Tech, which is only going to give him access to this turret. I think this is a terrible deck and a terrible choice. This is probably going to go Parting's way, simply for the fact that I just don't think Clem's going to have enough. Parting's actually going to go Air Tech. What's interesting is the Starforge tech. Some Starforge units do work on the ground, so it's not like guaranteed if you're building a Starforge, you will have air units. So he's going to have the choice between Dragonflies and the Stingers, and that's going to be his opportunity to kind of mix it up and decide what he wants to do. I would say he's probably going to go Crab Stinger and then Dragonfly Harass is probably the combination. I wouldn't say he's going to build Dragonflies off the bat. As Clem's moving out, he's actually going to get surrounded as Parting was out from the bottom right side, but Power Recall, you get into trouble, you recall home. However, he recalls to the natural because he didn't have the third up. So the third base is now going to be under attack, and Crabs will do okay damage here, but he can recall back over to try and defend this. The Crabs get a bit of surround off that. I'm going to start taking this fight, and the Crabs actually do pretty okay against the... I don't think I've ever seen a Crab fight a recall, because that just doesn't happen. The problem is the Crabs have zero retreat potential. Like, if they start trying to run away, like, they're going to take a lot of shots in the process. It's going to feel bad. So Clem and his opponent trade out. Both these units cost basic resources right now, so it's not really a huge cost. Most importantly for Clem, like I said, is getting that third base up. There's the Stingers, so they are going to be high damage units, and they're going to sit behind the Crabs. This is probably one of the best ways you can make this happen. Clem gets a couple of turrets up, so they're going to be heavy stack defense-based units. I don't think they're very good either right now. They're definitely very much so like a, hey, if you're new, build these, they'll help you defend and stuff. I don't think this is the sort of unit you're going to see. This is probably one of the worst games in the set of games we're going to watch, because I just think they're very unrealistic unit compositions and unit choices. I don't think anyone is going to play the turrets unless they get changed in a major way. And like I said, I think there's many better options than the Crabs. They actually introduced a new unit called the Scorpion. We'll see that in some of the games. The Scorpion is really good. It feels like a Zealot in terms of its mobility. It's the punch that it packs. In this case, the Crabs are doing pretty well against the Recall. It might honestly just be the case that Clem is, like, honestly a bit unaware of how to play against Crabs as well. And he's just like, yeah, these things are doing way better. But also, at this point, Clem should have some better tech. Instead, he's got turrets, so he can't really do much but recall between his bases and defend. This is good from Parton. He notices the recall on the left, so he goes back to the left-hand side to take advantage of the lack of units there. So he is going to be able to force that. Trying to come through the center as well. Parton teched up to Cap Bust, by the way, so he's actually on Tier 3 Starforge tech. Because the recall's so slow going, Parton has just had free reign of this game. So you're about to see what is kind of like a carrier, I suppose, only it's a cat, and it's a bus, and it flies. So they're going to arrive here in a moment, and here they are, the Cat Bus. They actually go meow when they spawn. And these things are going to be a problem for Clem, because he doesn't really have anti-air right now, although there he does have some heavy turrets. So he's actually gone to Tier 3 Foundry Tech, so now Clem's army is going to be so much better, because it's actually going to be something that's kind of worth fighting with. I think his issue is going to be dealing with the Cat Bus. His army is still very slow moving. So even just kind of running between his bases left to right, trying to get on top of these Cat Bus is going to be a difficulty, as we do see a bunch more of those workers going down. And the Cat Bus go retreating. I think at this point, Parton's on 4 bases. Yeah, I think this is one of the games where Parton is just going to kind of sweep the floor. He just needs to kind of pull back and get enough units to just clean out this one push of Clem. Like I say, I feel like the turrets are such a they're such a hemorrhage to your playstyle. They just do not add much. They're definitely one of the worst choices you can make in the game right now. Yeah, Clem's just going to tap out. His army's never going to be good enough. So that will be game. Yeah, this is honestly, I think, going to be one of the worst games you see, because I think these turrets just do not make it worth playing. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting one. Is this a purely micro game? I mean, micro and also unit building or unit like composition building, and there is some elements of like macro to it. It's very baseline, but like there's still a lot of map control you got to take. There's still a lot of keeping up with your production, figuring out if you want to expand or tech. And I tell you, one of the things that I found playing against Parting to me is incredible because he always has a terrifying amount of units, but he's also getting a base that you haven't been able to afford. Like, it's really spectacular. When I play against anyone else, I don't feel like this. It feels very fair. When I play against Parton, I'm like, bro, how the hell do you have a fourth base and this amount of units up in my face? Like, how is that? Like, how does it work? That was my experience playing against Parton. I played probably like 30 games with them. And it's just like, how do you always have like an extra base over me? And like, the economy is not like the idea of the economy is not super like complex or anything. We generally do similar, and then he just finds great times to build these bases where he doesn't get punished for it. So it's very, very cool. So yeah, if you can't swap your deck mid game, can't you just take build order losses? Well, that's the part of building the deck, right? I mean, you build the deck to build around your opponent, and you load in and you see what your opponent's playing, and if it's a bad matchup, you figure out ways to then make it work. And that's why the tournament formats and stuff, I imagine, can be very interesting. It's no different to like a card game. When you take a card, your deck of cards to a tournament. Like, I mean, I play Pokemon TCG, for example. You take your deck of cards, and in Pokemon, at least, you don't have a sideboard, so that's your deck. So what you play is got to be kind of like, hey, how does it do into the meta game? Like, does it have a good matchup against the majority of the meta? Does it have some bad matchups? Yes, probably. If it has a bad matchup, what's my plan then? All those kind of things. So yeah. I've got to run a set of ads, guys. You hope the meta won't be too fixed. I think there's almost zero chance. The willingness of the devs to kind of put in like very fun units and to make big changes to units to make them fun, I think it's going to be very difficult for there to be like a settled and stable meta, to be honest. In card games, having a default 40% win rate against different deck is a bad thing. Yeah, but I don't think that, like, from what I've played, that doesn't exist in this game. Like I don't think there's a I think if you play the turret, like the turrets are really bad. I feel like this was an unwinnable game for Clem, but I don't think generally out of all the games that I've played, I've been like, man, my deck just has zero chance against this guy's deck. Like the units are too interactive for that to happen. You know? Like to me the units are too interactive for that to happen, but maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe when people get better, but I just don't see it being a thing. And the cool thing about the game is you have a bad matchup, you just queue again and go. Like unless you're trying to play like a deck that's terrible into the meta, it's like you pull in bad matchups every other game. So yeah, honestly, I just don't. I think also as well, like when you have, say you have like a TCG, right? I feel like in a TCG, the majority of your deck interacts with the rest of your deck, whereas you also have like in this game you have the choice. You've got to tech towards certain things to access certain things, and so does your opponent. So if you're like, oh, my ground units lose to his ground units, then you don't play your ground units, right? You play your air units. Like that's kind of the beauty of the deck, and trying to kill him before a certain point or deciding to let it go, something along those lines. This is the first ever stream in the Battle Aces category. Autosis did a stream of these games last night. They announced the beta and a date and stuff, so I'm gonna predict probably not. Unless they didn't put it in the Battle Aces category for some reason. I'm just waiting for ads to play out, guys, then we'll get into the next game. Was that game 2 we just had? That was game 2, okay. Let's go into game 3. Obviously, I'm stopping to talk and discuss and tell you guys things and stuff, so if you, again, have any questions, feel free to keep on asking. Let's go into game 3. Martin versus Clem. So, so Pawn's going to play the Scorpions here. He's going to play the Scorpions against Gunbots. Gunbots are like little, they have like kind of a stim ability. And then Pine has the Scorpions. To me, they're kind of like Zealots. There's going to be a lot of kiting going on. Man, 15 seconds is not a lot of time to look at this board. I actually think when we have like an official observer, I think if I do like a tournament next week, I'm going to have my second PC in a game. And I'm going to capture this and put them like in the corners. Because I feel like it's so important to constantly see these things when you're watching. I feel like that's so important. But yeah, so we're going to go Scorpions and Beetles again with King Crab's Destroyers. There's also the air unit options. Clem's going to play the Gunbots with most likely a Foundry Tech into Crusaders and Shockers. So we'll talk about those units as they come in. So yeah, Scorpions. These things feel awesome. I saw these, and my biggest fear in this game was I was like, man, the basic melee units are always going to suck, but Scorpions do not suck. Scorpions are really good. They feel very fun and interactive to play with. These units just feel great. Like, they just feel good, you know? Surround potential. They're not overly overpowered in terms of they can chase everything down, but they can also, like, it just feels like the stats are right on these things. Like, I don't know how to explain it better than that. It was very fun playing with them, like I say, very satisfying. Clem expands, parting tech. So that's the main tech choice difference right now. Clem's going to go for, economy focus. Pine will build up some of the tech units, so he's going to get Destroyers and King Crabs. Destroyers are single-target, high-damage output units. They're great for knocking down big tech units. King Crabs are going to be what try and kind of do a lot of the slashing and swiping. It's going to be very melee-focused from Pine, which worries me a little bit with Clem, as he's going to get surrounded. This is Clem, I think, not really having too much experience with the Scorpions and the melee units in general, because within 3 games of playing against Pine using the Scorpions, I was like, right, I'm never moving onto the map again because he is so good at getting in position and finding moments to surround, and this is really bad. If the Scorpions surround, it's just so good for you. I mean, these Gunbots just get stuck. They will start to melt, and that's a lot of units lost for Clem early on. So this is definitely a kind of like a learning curve for Clem in this game, because this unit was not here when he probably played the most during the closed alpha. And in general, it was all ranged units on the core units that were being used, so you were able to kind of move out, and you'd generally be able to get away. But obviously, like, thinking about how your opponent might surround you and stuff is definitely not as something you're kind of aware of. Clem is going to step backwards here as he gets reinforcing Gunbots out. He's on his way to his tech units, so Crusaders and Shockers going to be accessible soon from Clem, but he's going to have to put up a little bit of a fight for a while as the Destroyers show up already from Pine. Pine would love to get on top of this third base and kill it before Clem's tech is here to protect it. And look, oh my god, the Destroyers actually melt that base. They might do a little bit too much damage to a base. That was like legitimately a 4-shot, as Pine already slips a King Crab over here. This got nerfed in the closed alpha because they were just too good at running by and killing workers. Clem loses half his mineral line still, but he was completely out of position to deal with that. As Clem is obviously not in a great spot. He lost his third, he lost half of his natural mineral line, a couple of plays from Pine, and I think Clem just, obviously on the back of that initial kind of Gunbot surround, is already in a bit of trouble. He gets Crusaders out. What he needs is a way to fight those Destroyers, those guys with the guns. He needs to get rid of those, because right now they are just going to absolutely destroy his tanky units. And this is the way to do it. Like, trying to get the Gunbots in the front, let those absorb the big shots. He's going to have the Shockers as well. They're big AoE units. Could be huge for hitting a lot of those Scorpions and clearing up the way. I'm not sure how the Shockers do elsewhere. No other tech on the way right now. Pine has like a 20-30 supply lead. This game has gone way better for him. As, yeah, you can see the Destroyers. They have such high range. There is absolutely ways to play around those, though. The Shockers do pretty well against the Scorpions. It's going to be a numbers check more than anything, though. I'm just worried that Clem does not have the numbers to really make much ado about that, as we get chased back. The Shockers still getting punched back. I mean, we're going to play majority of this gets cleaned up from Pine, but he kills the base again. I think the Destroyers might be too good on bases, guys. Like, they absolutely destroy things. Which would be fair enough, but, like, it just forces you to fight. You know, basically, if you let them get to your base, it's already too late, right? I think is the issue, so yeah, Clem, I think this was a big lack of experience in playing against the Scorpions specifically. I feel like if we redid this game and he played against this unit composition once before, I feel like he would already do a lot better because he's going to be so much more aware of the surrounds. And when you guys see some of the later games, you're going to see that Clem opens and positions very differently early in the game when he plays against Scorpions because he knows about that possibility and that opportunity that Parting is setting up for. I think it's fair to say that when these two played these matches, Parting had played about... They both got access to, you know, the game to play again for like maybe 24, 26 hours before the match played. I think Parting probably played for about 15 hours in that period, and Clem probably played for about 3. I played like 4 or 5 hours with Parting at least myself, so I think Parting does come into this with a lot more better ideas on how some of the unit interactions work as well. As Parting again runs those king crabs by. That's the importance of map control. You need to keep vision on the bottom right side. You need to know when units are heading that way. You can't just lose track of a couple of king crabs like that because you're going to get punished hard. Generally, you can actually do pretty well against harassment because obviously you can spawn units at the base and there's a lot of, you know, units that can get across to bases quickly to play defense. But if you have everything out on the map and you just have no vision on the bottom right, Parting's going to run those units by every single time. Like, he's never going to let you, you know, he's never going to let that kind of, you know, let you get away with that kind of mistake, so... All right, let's just keep going. We'll just go into game 4 and let's see you guys. Again, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask away. I'm very happily try and answer for you guys. I'm trying to think what Parting was playing the most of when we played. I think he started to play a lot of Blink and like Advanced Blink and stuff as well. All right, let's have a look at game 4. All right, yeah, going. All right, so game 4. I'm not keeping track of scores or anything, so Clem's going to play Wasp and Hornet, and Swift Shockers, and Parting's going to play Recall. Recall's so funny. When we played in California, nobody used Recall units because they were just like, everyone's like, well, these units suck. And then on day 2, David Kim was like, hey, watch this. And David Kim proceeded to beat all of our butts down with Recall, and we were just like, whoa, you play the game so differently to all of us. So Recall became much more of a factor once David Kim kind of showed us how you should play these units and just how aggressive you can be and how many cool plays you can make and stuff. I honestly, personally, do not think the majority of these games do this game justice. If you give these guys the game for a week, I feel like the match they're going to play is going to be so incredible in comparison. This is rough for Pine. He spawns units in and the Wasp kind of dive in there, but with the Recall he should be good. Clem should have gotten out of there immediately. A very different setup from Clem to when Parting played Wasp. Clem comes in with kind of all these units in one place at once. Takes the third base. Parting obviously just kind of set up on 2 different flanks and was already trying to find something like that. Yeah, that's a good Recall because Wasps actually do pretty well against the Recall guys when they get the full surround. Wasps want to try and dive in again, but the Recallers are going to be in position. So the defense is that as Clem's expanding, I would be very shocked if Parting was not teching. Without a base here, there's pretty much... Parting's not spent any of his like gas resource yet, any of his power. And that's because... And basically, it costs you 400 to kind of tech or expand. So when one player expands and the other person hasn't done anything, they're probably teching. And Parting is doing exactly that. He's teching. He's going to get the Raiders up, and these things are honestly... I still think they're probably the most broken part of the game right now. I'd be kind of shocked if they stuck around in the form that they are in for too long, as Clem. Going to show us here a little bit of the idea of trying to go in from 2 different sides, and he forces the Recall up top and tries to take advantage against the units on the bottom. He actually also dives units up to the top as well, so able to take a fight, but I think this is where Clem should have already pulled away. He loses so many Wasps, and that's the problem with the Wasp. This unit, it feels so underwhelming nowadays, and I say nowadays, you guys probably seen it for like the first time, but this unit was so good when we first started, but people really figured out just how to play patiently against it. Going to be seeing these Raiders trying to get through, and Clem does get a wraparound. Oh my god, one of the rare times the Raiders are not going to be worth their money, as Clem is able to wrap and kill those off. At the same time, though, Clem puts a lot of attention to that, and so Parting is able to show up, and he is going to get rid of the forward base. That puts Clem in trouble, as the Wasps are going to come in. They're going to get surrounded on the Crusader. Crusader is not good against Wasps. Oh, the Swift Shockers, though, might turn this around, actually. Swift Shockers are actually... this is a new unit as well. I've not got a lot of experience with them, but Parting was using them a lot. When he played against me, they're actually surprisingly good because they hit so quickly. They actually take down the higher... Like, you expect them to be good against small units that you splash against, but actually, like, they're pretty good against the bigger kind of tech units as well because they just hit so rapidly. they do drain those health bars. Again, Clem denies the Raiders, so a great example here of how you can deny that run-by potential on these very scary units. As, oh, Clem, though, he got a bit too caught chasing those Raiders down, so he kind of gets caught on the bottom side. He comes in with some reinforcing Wasp, but Pine is going to have himself a bunch of Crusaders, and they are just going to be a bit too good. Yeah, I think with time, the Swift Shockers can do okay here. They can kite for a lot, but yeah, Clem has done a great job shutting those down, but he kind of got baited too far forward there, which is a shame because Clem was essentially without a re-expansion. Kind of lining up to go for a big push to deny the third base, but getting caught like that. Obviously, his Swift Shockers in the front being in trouble. Like, this is the problem. If he could have been, like, here, you can see how well these units can trade. But because he got caught too far forward on the bottom, you know, Parton was able to kind of get a wraparound, and then the kiting ability goes away, and those units become so much worse. I'm going to force the recall because the Swift Shockers are going to do, like I say, very good at kind of chasing down. Like, Clem's going to keep himself in this because of that. So that's actually pretty cool. Here's there are additional features on the map. I would be very surprised if there wasn't in the future. Like, there's only one map right now, and their goal so far is to be making the gameplay fun. I'd be very shocked if they didn't do more with the maps in the future. Like, to me, that just seems like such an obvious, like, choice to make this game better. I'd be shocked if they didn't. Oh, again, Clemmy kind of runs in there, but with the recall, you actually get a surround because the Crusaders can play the blocking game. Trying to stop those Swift Shockers from getting away. They don't quite get the full surround. As we do have Wasps actually clearing up some Crusaders on the front. Clem is going to stay in this. The recall back over. Clem decided to start re-expanding to this. He's going to get back on these Crusaders. He's actually done a great job of fighting against these tank units. The recall's a little bit too powerful overall, though, and I think just the numbers that Parton has is probably going to be too much. It looks like we probably had a Raider get in as well and kill that mineral line at some point, too. And that means that Clem probably is running out of money here. You know, he's down like 70 supply or something. That's probably just going to be game. As you can see, Parton is very well versed in this game, guys. He is. It's kind of crazy how well he understands when to expand and when to position and stuff like that. Like, he's surprisingly good. There's more than one map. No, the 2v2 map is just the 1v1 map, just with a different tile set. And slightly larger bases. I'm pretty sure it's pretty much the same layout. Like, they've not put really any kind of thought or attention towards that yet. That's absolutely going to be something they aim for in the future instead. Parton's a gamer. He really is a gamer. In these games, it's like so apparent, just like it's ridiculous. All right, let's go game 5. I'm just let's head into it. Watch another game. So Clem's going to be on Wasp Hornet again. Kind of a very similar composition. He's got bombers this time. Playing against Blink, and there's also Advanced Blink on the side of Parton, so he does have the ability to go to tier 3. And I've not actually gone to play with the Advanced Blinks myself. Parton killed me every time before I got to tier 3 with them, but interestingly, there's no high ground. Yeah, that's one thing that they definitely want to kind of keep more basic, I think. I don't think there's any intention of adding high ground. How many games are there? 15. And a 2v2 at the end. Waspy boys, I'm going to run in. So Wasp against Blink, I explained this earlier, but Blink pretty good against Wasp because you can just blink out of trouble. You can tank a little bit, blink backwards, get into a better position. This is not bad for Parton taking some damage because yeah, he's doing the right thing, blinking after the Wasps as well. You just want to kill off as many of those as possible as Clem. Does not really succeed there, but gets the third base up, and that's what you want to do. I think when Wasps become really good is when they start getting to a fourth base as well. And that's when you can really start to make the opponent feel pressured to have to go do something. And then there's Wasps and all the bases and stuff like that. Becomes very cool. Yeah, the Blinks are very much so like Stalkers. They feel kind of like Stalkers to play with as well. Like, they fire. They're good at blinking forward aggressively. Yeah, kind of typical Blink micro as well. It's definitely very SQ inspired. This is problematic for Parton because these guys can't really blink anywhere good. Like, they blink downwards into just another surround. At least they've got their backs up against the wall. I'm going to say, if Clem gets the rest of the Wasps here, he can actually start to get a better surround on the other units showing up. And this continued fight might be pretty good for him. So he's going to chase Parton back. The blink definitely getting Parton in a bit of trouble. He's just struggling to kind of blink out enough. This was just him getting a little bit too caught up, a bit too far forward. As they both took a third base now teching. Clem is going to hit the Starforge tech, so he's going to have the option to harass with Dragonflies, but also play the Stingers on the ground to really make this composition powerful. Again, that's probably one of the most used compositions by Parton throughout the closed alpha. I think that's one of the things he used the absolute most. Part is Tekken as well. I think he's once again going towards his Crusaders. That's definitely his unit of choice, just big tanky forces. Pretty much because nobody he's been playing against has been willing to build destroyers, which would probably just shut down a lot of what Parton likes to try and do, and kind of force him to innovate on those tier 2 units a little bit more. You know, the Stingers. The Wasp-Stinger combo is great because the Stingers do a lot of damage, but they're so flimsy. With the Wasp being able to kind of just sacrifice themselves in front a lot, then it's great. We actually get a surround on a Shocker there. We are going to also see the Stingers coming through, and they're going to absolutely wreck Shockers. Shockers do not last long against them. The Shockers are great against Wasps, but they need support. Like, Shockers on their own just a little slow moving, and if they get caught, they die so quickly. With Blink against Shockers, you can kind of just blink on top of the Shockers and target fire them down as well. I think Parting's completely lost control of this game. Third base is not mine at all. He's going to spawn some Shockers in here and try and go. And he is going to do okay. You can see how close those Stingers go to going down, and he will get the full cleanup on it. It just took a little while. I'm sitting in the center, not moving with the rest of his units. He is starting another reinforcement wave up, so he's bringing another round of units out to the center. Runs around the top side, looks to dive into the natural location. The Wasps wanting to dive forwards here, and they are going to make a play onto this mineral line. Shockers in position, though, and they're going to be able to get the majority of these Wasps. Can we get enough to save these Shockers? One will live. Blinks. Oh, Advanced Blinks coming up, so we actually hit tier 3 tech here on both sides. Advanced Blinks versus the Locusts. The Locusts are kind of like a, yeah, well, you can just see. I would kind of explain them as kind of like, in StarCraft terms, they kind of feel like a battlecruiser, but with the speed and the mobility of Mutalisks. The Advanced Blinks are actually pretty good anti-air-wise, though, and their missiles do track, so we'll start to take control here. I mean, you can see the Locusts were pretty terrifying at first, but if Parton had a little bit more anti-air ready, I don't think it would have been that much of an issue. Clem, as the units have to chase the air forces away, Clem brings those air units up to the top. It lets his ground army move into the main base. He's going to come back in with the Locusts to kill workers on the natural to secure his advantage, taking a 4th base behind it. And yeah, he's probably not able to clean this army up, but he's put Parton on pretty much the kind of the last stand kind of limit. Parton's going to probably have one push to try and end this, and he does have a lot of high-tech units that Clem might struggle with. Like, those Advanced Blinks are pretty tanky. They are pretty tanky, so that's going to be a factor as... Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at this... When I look at this army, you guys probably don't know what you're looking at, right? But, like, when I look at this army, I'm like, man, there's not a lot of bulk in this. Like, this might just die. I think the only thing Parting's missing is a good way to get rid of the Wasps quickly, and having to waste time hitting those Wasps so much might actually be a problem. You can see the Advanced Blinks are pretty good against the base as well. We're going to kill it and what? Blink away? Yeah, we're going to get just too much stuff. If there was some AoE on the ground to get rid of the Wasps, I could become so much more of a believer. As Clem is just going to go for the main base location and try and knock that down. Parton is just too poor to really get enough units up to kind of fight this, but his army composition is definitely better. It's just there's only so much of it he can build, whereas Clem still has a base bottom right as well, so he still has that mining. And that's where Clem is going to be able to get the GG off of Parton, because Parton was almost there. He had the tech, he had the extra units up, he had the quality of army. He just didn't have the ability to build enough of it and the size of army that was really necessary there. And that's the GG's. So that was game 5, so that's just a third of the way through these games that Parton and Clem played against each other. Going to game 6 in a sec, guys. I just have to run ads, so we'll run ads, going to game 6. Like I said, we've got 10 more games and a 2v2 to go through. The 2v2 is really good, by the way. I wouldn't be surprised almost if 2v2 is an extremely popular mode in this game. With the fluidity, I was talking to David Kim, and one of the very interesting things that he talked about was because there's no set races, because it's deck building rather than units being given access to certain races and stuff, you can kind of do crazier things with units, because it's not like you give it's not like you're giving Protoss one super OP unit, right? So it's not, because there's no race, there's not like you're giving one race an OP unit, which limits what you can do. You can give everyone the OP unit, and then everyone answers to the said OP unit, and it creates for a lot of interesting game design options, actually. Because when he was discussing a couple of units and things they could do with them, I was like, oh. And that kind of works, right? Because you don't have to worry about buffing up this so much that gets nerfed, like in that way, for example. So definitely is one of the interesting parts of this game. Like, the deck building definitely lets you kind of approach it in a very different way to how you would usually approach these things, so very cool. Yeah, there's no races, just units, and you just pick 8 units to play with in each game. Any unit can play with any other unit. How do you reduce the Russian roulette nature of the game? Seems like initial unit selection or build choices dictate the outcome more than SC2. I think that's just player experience over time. Over time, you kind of look and be like, like maybe my ground units suck, but like my air units could do better. I mean, to some extent, there probably is going to be that, but like that kind of really is hard to tell right now when everyone's new, because I have, I think, 40 hours or so played, 40 to 50. I've not come across this at all, where I'm like, this is the set of units that can't lose to anything. And like certain pushes are very good, like against certain things, but then if my opponent sees that I have the potential to do a certain push against a certain thing, he could tech differently, or he could tech faster, or he could expand more instead to kind of work, make me go to 2 different places instead of just the one. So I've not really experienced that yet. I think the Russian roulette nature is really dependent on the player building good decks, right? So, yeah. Alright, let's jump into more games, guys. Let's go game 6. Pauline versus Clem. Still, believe it or not. So this time, Pauline's playing the Wasps, and he's going to play Wasps against Recall. Wasp, Bomber, King Crab. Probably, he could play into the Advanced Recall. No, I don't think so. I think he's going to play Ground Tech against, probably Clem, who plays Ground Tech as well. Alright, so.
Ready to sting.
Lots of Waspies.
Spinning.
First 30 seconds, you build your units, you build, you expand, you decide if you're going to fight or not. There's a few recallers out the front, going to go for a little bit of a press out. Again, they're safe to do so because they can recall back if needed, and right now it doesn't really matter if Parton hits the natural, because the natural is not going to have workers on it. Workers take a minute from the base being built to spawn in. So your natural, you build your natural pretty much as the game starts, and that pretty much means that 9 minutes on the timer on the top, that is when workers spawn, and that's when Wasps are really dangerous. That's when you actually need to have a defense on the natural. Before then, it doesn't actually matter with recalls, because you can just recall back to deal with it. A bit of damage on the base doesn't matter so much. Base HP is definitely a resource when you're playing against Wasps, because there's points where they can be very overwhelming, and Parton actually just gets us around here. I actually think recalls might be one of the better matchups for Wasps. Early on, the recalls just don't shoot fast enough to clean these Wasps up, and they don't have as much choice over where you go. Like, you can see units being recalled in to try and like reinforce ASAP, but they don't have as much mobility as the Blinks. I think that allows the Blinks to just play a bit better. And also, because the recalls want to expand to give them more mobility on the map, it kind of exposes you to the Wasps who really benefit from your opponent expanding. So I think recalls have a bit of a rough matchup there, but I think that is as well just kind of the figuring. Here's the interesting part about all of these games, guys, is that whatever you see here, I think if you have a match between these two 1 week into them playing this game, it looks so different, because the understanding of what you do in certain scenarios with certain units against certain other things changes so much. Like, there's so much fluidity there. It's maybe a complaint about this game is that you've got to make you actually make so many big decisions so quickly, and they're very influential. But so I feel like this game actually, personally, I feel like it benefits from knowing more and kind of having more experience in like a big way. As you see, these Wasps are going to try and run in the recalls. I'm just going to back away. See Pong get up to a 4th base. He's so quick getting to that 4. He's got the bombers. These are kind of like banelings. And the recalls try to split last second there, but not able to get enough. However, he can recall, and he's actually gone to the advanced recalls. These guys are really cool. I actually use the advanced recalls in some of my Blink decks. They're actually surprisingly good because they're very tanky. Well, not against bombers. Oh, that was painful. He just got caught up. They're kind of slow moving, so you got to pre-split them realistically. They're actually really cool. They do like really good damage, so I actually use them as like a tech choice in Blink decks, and it caught a lot of people off guard. I didn't really have a name for it, but it was basically I would play like a lot of like small units instead of any kind of like super big tech unit. My tech unit would also be like this small guy with a gun, and like you kind of can overwhelm and just have so much firepower. It probably dies hard to splash, but definitely caught a few people off. I think one of the games I beat Parton with in this when we're kind of practicing for this. I think one of the times I beat Point, I think I used the advanced recalls as like my tech unit and kind of just overwhelmed him a little bit with, you know, 2 different armies kind of harassing on 2 sides and kind of coming in different directions. As Point comes up, and is going to recall a few more recallers in. He has to recall into the bombers, which is not exactly ideal. King Krabs gets shot down. King Krabs actually melts the advanced recalls. The guys with guns, they like just disappear. And I actually think that Clem, while he's been in a little bit of trouble thus far, look at this. He's actually going to have an attack up over here. These units can recall out as well, so this is just a full cleanup on that mineral line. I think Clem is honestly staying in an okay position. If he can keep the base alive, if he keeps his 3rd base alive, I actually think Clem can win this game because it may not have looked good with a lot of the early trades, but he's on equal economy right now, and I think his unit composition is better with the advanced recalls. I don't know what... I think you got to build more bombers here as Pine and really blow up those advanced recalls. Maybe you get bombers, blow up the advanced recalls, and then you bring King Krabs in. Does Clem not have enough? There's like 1 or 2 bombers left, man. The bombers are so good against the advanced recalls. I actually thought Clem had a chance here, but I think Parting did the right thing. He stopped building King Krabs. He went into bombers. The bombers really do make the difference. It's probably the best answer to what Clem's building here, which is, like I said, just a lot of the lower tech units. Bombers probably are the best way to kind of deal with that. Yeah, Banelings are hard to play against, especially when you're not familiar with kind of the mobility of your own units, right? Especially when you're not sure like how the best or most efficient way to split. Banelings are pretty good. There's going to be a lot of units which I think are going to be very good when we first start playing and everyone first starts playing that become much worse when people have played against them a lot more, you know? I think that's going to be a pretty big factor. All right, let's go into Game 7. If I remember correctly, Game 7 is a banger. I think this is going to be the best game we've seen so far. So, let's see. So, Pine is going to play... Oh, yeah, no, it absolutely is. He's going to play the Krabs against turrets. Wait, is that not the one we saw earlier? I think this is another game where he plays Krabs against turrets and stuff, but it goes much better for Clem. Unless this is... Hang on, give me 1 sec, guys. Let me just double check we're not doing 2 games at once here or something. No, this is a different game. It just looks like a super similar setup to before. Sorry. I just want to make sure I didn't mess something up.